Hello, my name is Beatrice Bender, and today I will talk to you about Madagascar, a developed country that has seen minimal growth in the past decades. In this presentation, I will analyze the obstacles to economic development and propose a project to overcome one of the biggest obstacles Madagascar is facing today. Madagascar is ranked 151st in the Human Development Index, making it a very low economically developed country. With a population of approximately 22 million, the dependency ratio is relatively high, with 85.7. Since the working class age, as you can see here, is relatively small, hence making the country dependent on a small working class sector, the high dependency ratio is definitely a factor limiting Madagascar from further development. The following social and economic facts will help us understand the situation in Madagascar. Education and literacy rates are progressively increasing. If we look at the labor force of 9 million, we can tell that the labor class makes up a small sector of the population, as mentioned before. Hence, lower levels of productivity are achieved as only 9 million are working. More than half of the population as well, shockingly, lives below the poverty line, below $1.25 a day. So this is 67.8% of the population in Madagascar. Again, to support this fact, as mentioned before, the poverty level is shocking in Madagascar and hence is also seen as an obstacle for further growth as well as development in this nation. This Lorenz curve illustrates the inequality of income distribution as the Gini coefficient is 47.2. So this is very high. As can seen in this curve, that Madagascar is far away from the line of total equity, and that the top 80 to 100% of the population receive the highest percentage of income. The HDI trend, as one can see here, has been recorded and shows that life expectancy as well as the expected years of schooling have both increased over the years, which is beneficial not only for Madagascar's economy but also for the society. However, life expectancy could certainly be increased even more, as it would directly correlate with productivity and output of the nation. So if Madagascar continues as the life expectancy at birth continues to increase in Madagascar, this would certainly be beneficial. As one can also see on the right-hand side of the table, the gross national income has fallen, meaning lower incomes are earned by households, and also the HDI level, or the value, has also fallen, which means that it hasn't been economic growth and development in Madagascar has, so to say, it has slowed down. This slide shows that Madagascar is a country that is very dependent on agricultural production and produces a lot of primary products such as rice paddy, cassava, and sugarcane, as we can see on this chart here. It is not beneficial for Madagascar to be highly dependent on agricultural production, as it makes it a subject to fluctuations in prices in the market. As we can also see from the imports and exports, one can see that Madagascar mainly exports agricultural and primary goods, whereas they are importing more secondary goods. Infrastructure, as one can see here on the slide and also the map on the right-hand side, is another obstacle or problem hindering Madagascar from developing. And as seen on the map on the right, it shows that there are only a few roads that go through the mainland, and the unpaved roads clearly exceed the paved roads. So this certainly does need to improve in the future, and will certainly make transportation easier if more investments are made into infrastructure. And obviously, if infrastructure is very low right now, there's a lack of communication between the rural regions in Madagascar. The only benefit, as we can see here, is the coastlines that Madagascar has, and that they can be easily accessed by boats or ships. As we look at further limiting factors, the one that has caught my eye and the one that I think is the biggest problem that Madagascar is currently struggling with is the unimproved water supply and sanitation access across the country. As we can see here, drinking water has not improved for 59%, and sanitation facility access unimproved is 89%. So these are high numbers. So, and this then correlates to high risks of infectious diseases, which will then again lead to less productivity. To support this argument, this map has been found on Gapminder, and this shows the correlation between life expectancy and improved sanitation. While Madagascar does have a higher life expectancy than the rest of the African countries, which are shown in blue, Madagascar's sanitation access or its improvement is horrific, as it has not improved significantly between the years of 2001 and 2008. And this is another chart showing deprivations in each indicator, and if we look in the indicator of living standards, we can see that drinking water as well as sanitation are both very high. So a large percentage of the population who are poor are deprived of these indicators and are clearly lacking the access to drinking water as well as adequate sanitation. So in order to illustrate this better, this health trap shows the cycle that Madagascar is stuck in or cannot get out of at the moment, and thus proves to be an obstacle and it is standing in the way of any further economic growth or development. So it starts with unimproved sanitation and drinking water, leads to these high infectious diseases, unemployment, less productivity, low incomes, then that leads to a large population living under the poverty line, and eventually, if incomes are low, government will be earning less government revenues, hence there will be less government spending on health and sanitation, and this cycle continues and continues. Now, after mentioning the obstacles to development, I would just like to point out the potential that Madagascar has to offer and why projects or why foreigners should invest in projects in Madagascar in order to help this nation grow. First off, Madagascar proves to have very rich resources as listed above. Madagascar also is the 4th largest island in the world, so it is not a country that is landlocked or there are no natural resource conflicts in Madagascar. It's a very peaceful country. There are no civil wars going on. So being a large island, it is easily accessible via boats and ships. Furthermore, I think that Madagascar has a lot of potential for the tourism sector, which could also be expanded if Madagascar were to improve on infrastructure as well as health and sanitation. So my proposal is to implement a project that improves accessibility to drinking water and sanitation in one rural region in Madagascar. And according to the success, this project could then be started in several regions across Madagascar. Similar projects, as listed below, have been launched and completed in the past years and show pleasing results. So I think that by implementing this project, the one that I'm proposing, would certainly make a difference for the society as well as for the country, nation as a whole. The project is targeted at a region in the southern end of Madagascar with a population of approximately 500,000 people. When this project would be completed, 62% of the population will have improved access to sanitation. Over 60% would have clean drinking water. So this would be a huge improvement for such a region. The idea behind the sanitation blocks, as you can see on the left-hand side, is to educate and also train the locals and have the community later run these sanitation blocks. So maybe having an NGO such as WaterAid contribute to this project would help achieve this goal, as they could send volunteers to overlook construction and also train the locals. And then in the future, water points or water pumps can be produced domestically, which would in the future save costs for the government. The finances or as you can see, everything together, including the sanitation blocks, the sewer system pipelines, construction, and the water wells or water points, would total up to approximately $13 million. The finances of the project are meant to come from 3 different sources. One source, the donations, would make up approximately 7%, and this would include several organizations. 32% come from the government, which will receive loans from the World Bank, and 61% would come from foreign investments and foreign banks. Now, if we look at the return on investments, or the return from this project, based on the previous projects or similar projects that I've mentioned before, approximately for $1 for each $1 spent on sanitation, approximately $9 are returned. So if we were to use this statistic and to our 13 million that are needed for this project, we would return or 117 million US dollars would be returned if this project were to be finished. So in the long term, the impact of improved sanitation will repay the loans as productivity increases and there are lower health debts. So lower healthcare burden and increased productivity will make up these returns. As you can see on the chart on the lower right-hand side, approximately 70 million would come from reduced health burdens, and approximately 47 million would come from productivity. Investments would be returned within 5 years, so the government would pay back the World Bank as well as the private investments in the foreign banks that have invested in this project, including the interest rates that need to be additionally paid to these banks that have invested and granted loans to the government. So thank you very much for your attention, and I hope you consider this proposal and recognize that it can make a huge impact on the societal development and lead to economic growth in the long term, making Madagascar make an investment in the future and help Madagascar grow. Thank you.